Hey guys, Lone Wolf here, and this is going to be my initial review of the mechanic class in Battlefield Hardline. Now obviously with this game still being in beta, anything I say is subject to change, but I'm just going to give my thoughts and opinions based upon the game as is. Now the mechanic class is having a little bit of an identity crisis at the moment. The engineer in previous Battlefield games was very useful because there were plenty of vehicles for you to shoot at with your rockets and put mines down and repair vehicles. It was just generally a pretty good class because it gave you that anti-armour role. Now in this game the majority of the vehicles have been removed and overall the vehicle threat has been toned down dramatically. So the mechanic has to be repurposed to a certain degree. It needs to be much better at killing infantry to compensate for the fact that it's no longer doing the anti-vehicle role so much, and it's also got to be unique from the operator class. So the question is, has Visceral done enough to achieve both of these objectives? Now I should note at this point that the mechanic hasn't lost all of its vehicular heritage. It's the only class in the game with access to explosive launchers that can damage vehicles. It's got the repair tool and it has a new sabotage gadget that, although I haven't tried yet, I believe functions very similarly to the M2 Slam in that you can attach it to vehicles and when an enemy tries to use them it will detonate. However, I only really see the sabotage gadget being good for trolling the opposition. The repair tool may be useful in Hotwire, but in other game modes I don't really see any reason to repair a vehicle. And the grenade launcher, while somewhat effective against enemy vehicles, for the most part you can damage enemy transport with small arms fire, so I don't really see this as being a reason to pick the class either. So the question is, with this small of a role against enemy vehicles, is it worth picking this class over the operator or the enforcer? Now I exclude the professional class from this because from my perspective it feels more of a reconnaissance and long range combat role, so it isn't comparable, but the operator and enforcer classes directly compete with the mechanic, and as with previous games the operator has access to the med bag and the enforcer the ammo bag. So lacking these advantages and with infrequently useful anti-vehicle gadgets, the mechanic is going to have to make up for this either with its two other unique gadgets or with its weapons. So I spent a couple of hours trying to work out whether the PDWs are actually any good. Starting off with the MP5K, I genuinely believe this weapon is more or less useless. It's got a really tiny 20 round magazine, and compared with the K10, which I'll talk about in a moment, it's comparably accurate within its effective range, does less damage per second, reloads slower, and has a smaller magazine. So as soon as you can, I recommend you move away from this one. The UMP45, M45 and Uzi are all slow firing 600 round per minute weapons, are more accurate, do have larger magazines, but do even less damage per second. So with the exception of the UMP45, which maintains its damage over distance quite a bit better at the expense of a smaller magazine, the M45 and Uzi just feel pretty useless again. You'll see from some of this footage with the M45, I'm putting so many shots into people at what is really quite a close range and they're still not dead. Considering how slowly this gun fires, this really doesn't feel okay, and it just makes these weapons feel distinctly underpowered. So what about the FMG9, MPX, P90 and K10? Well, I didn't get to unlock the MPX and FMG9, but the P90 is alright. With its larger magazine it can be pretty good fun to use and it's pretty accurate over distance, so this one's not bad. The K10 however is actually a very good weapon. This is really the diamond in the rough. It shoots incredibly fast and does really good damage, so if you really want to drop people just as fast as possible, the K10 may even be a reason to use the mechanic class. As regards the FMG9 and MPX, these are both weapons I've seen statistics for but haven't actually had a chance to use. The FMG9 seems like a considerably weaker P90, so I don't see this being particularly effective. The MPX could actually be quite good, but I see nothing to suggest that it's going to be especially powerful. So with the exception of the K10, the mechanics weapons are interesting and fun, but not particularly effective overall. This just leaves the other two engineer-specific gadgets, the satellite phone and the armor insert. Now the satellite phone could be useful if it's used intelligently, but the armored insert I've deliberately left till last because this has the potential to really swing more power in favor of the mechanic depending on how much of a damage reduction it does for incoming projectiles to the torso. I haven't been able to find any statistics on this one yet. This may just be because I haven't been looking in the right places or because it hasn't been extracted from the game code yet, but depending on how much of a bullet damage reduction this does, it may well make the mechanic a whole lot more attractive. Both these gadgets might make the mechanic more effective, but subjectively, I just don't think they fit the theme any better than they would the other classes in the game, and it all comes together to give the impression that the mechanic is pretty lost in Battlefield Hardline without its anti-armor role to fill. My recommendation to the developers as far as balancing this class is concerned would be simply to increase the effectiveness of its weapons. Considering it doesn't have any other major advantages like a med bag or ammo bag, I feel like the guns are just a little bit too weak. My recommendation to players would be to give this class a try because the weapons are quite interesting, they are quite good fun, and they're not that bad, so you won't do terribly with them. And especially the K10, this gun is actually very good and very viable, and you should really give that a try. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my brief review of the mechanic class. Let me know what you think about my opinions on this, whether you agree with me, whether you think I'm completely wrong. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.